About 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to cover the 7th entry in the long-running Chinese RPG series, Xuan Yuan Sword. Since then, I've made sure to cover other games from this and the Sword and Fairy series, and today is going to continue that trend. Hello everyone, my name is Gildart, and this is my first impressions of Xuan Yuan Sword, the Gate of Firmament. Like I said earlier, I took a look at Xuan Yuan Sword 7 3 years ago, and last year I covered the 3rd entry in the series Mists Beyond the Mountains. I already knew that 7 was a departure from the usual gameplay in favor of a more action-adventure style, which I really enjoyed. In fact, I got all of the achievements on Xbox One not too long after putting out my initial video. Now, the Gate of Firmament is more of a spin-off than a mainline entry and was originally released in 2015. It was also the first in the franchise to get an English translation at the time. Well, we just got a PS5 port of the game on December 13th, and even though I already own this on both Xbox One and Steam, I think it's the perfect time to actually play more than 30 minutes of it. East Asia Soft was kind enough to provide a review code, so a big special thanks to them, and a big special thanks to you for checking out this video. If you enjoy it, I'd appreciate a like, comment with your thoughts below, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. Every little thing helps this channel grow. Maybe think about clicking that join button and becoming a member of the guild as well. Anyways, enough plugging, let's get into Xuan Yuan Sword, the Gate of Firmament. Starting things up, we get this opening cinematic that honestly has a really catchy Chinese pop rock song playing in the background. Though the visuals are a bit dated even for 2015, this opening is fairly well animated. And the great music doesn't just stop here. The whole soundtrack is perfectly composed to suit the vibe of the game. Also, the battle music slaps, so you know that you're at least going to enjoy the sounds as we make our way through the story. Getting into the game itself, we get some disposition and lore about the Xuan Yuan Sword. It was broken at one point, but was reforged by a god in the form of the god's daughter. When that daughter went missing, the god opened the gates of heaven to find her. This happened to also allow demons and monsters into our world. So thanks, God! It then cuts to some people conducting a ceremony, and it looks like they're using the Xuan Yuan Sword to close the gates of heaven. Now, I don't know what's going on exactly, but whoever's in the center with the sword probably dies or something, because this guy asks this girl why she didn't keep her promise. Once the gate is sealed, it shows the Xuan Yuan Sword falling from the floating piece of land that they were all on. We're then taken to Youxiang Village a few centuries later. Here we're introduced to our main character, Sikong Yu. He is an inventor and he creates traps that keeps his clan safe. From piglets, apparently. It then cuts back to the land where the ceremony was done. The girl who, allegedly, didn't keep her promise is looking into the dome where the others were. This is where we find out that those who were in the center of the ceremony have turned into stone. The place starts being attacked, and the girl just suddenly disappears. We're then taken to a cult doing a ceremony of their own and summons a Koto? I mean, this is the Koto that ultimately sealed the gate, but I have no idea what its importance is. This intro really likes to jump around because we're back at Youxiang Village, and here we're introduced to Yu's younger sister, not sister, so of course there's gonna be some slight romantic tension between the two. Her name is Qingmei. Yu shows off his newest device when his mother, not her mother because they're not blood related so it's fine, shows up to tell them that the village needs to relocate as it's becoming too dangerous where they are. We later find out that this is because of a war that's going on, and this village relocates every 3 years to stay safe. One of Yu's traps from the forest goes off, and to clear his head, he goes to check on it. And now we finally have control of the game. I do want to say before we move too far that some of these events are in-game while others are pre-rendered. Now I'm gonna let you guess when the game turns from in-game to pre-rendered. Yeah, you notice that dip in resolution quality? I thought I was playing this on the PS5, not a PS2. maybe they couldn't recreate the cutscene for some reason, but this does hurt the overall quality of the presentation. There are also a few sound effects that seem to be missing or are drowned out in some scenes. The in-game conversations aren't safe from visual or audio issues either. I cranked up the voice volume as much as I could, and it still gets drowned out by the music from time to time. Anyways, before going to the forest, as any good completionist, I have to finish any quests that are available to me in this town. So let's run around and see what we can do. You can open a map by pressing triangle. On this map, you can see exclamation points for quests that you can trigger the next step in, or question marks for ones that cannot be completed yet. You can even find chests, which some require you to enter a password. And you can absolutely tell that I was paying complete attention at this time because I didn't notice the word that was supposed to be your hint. Anyways, none of the quests I could do had any real meaning except for the one that kinda gave me some info on Yu's dad, who died trying to fight others that put their village in harm. This was against the village chief's orders, so his family isn't held very highly in this village. Yu's insistence on creating the traps that are laid around the village are seen as putting them at more of a risk. Now, this part about Yu's dad should be a whole lot more emotional, but the character models aren't animated in the best way. It's almost like they have just a handful of default emotions and they can't turn their heads or their eyes, so we get this emotional conversation all while Qingmei is disassociating and staring off to the void. Same girl, same. We also get this very smooth turn away from Yu. At first, I thought I just blinked and missed the animation, but nope. We're gonna have to deal with this a lot in this game, aren't we? So we make our way to the forest where Qingmei follows us to keep us company. Turns out it was a villager who got caught in Yu's trap. He scolds them both before running back to the village to tell the chief what happened. After this, we can fight in other battles and explore a bit of the forest to find some more treasure chests. There aren't as many secrets that make you feel the need to go explore every last inch of these maps, but finding the chests can be helpful, and I don't know why, but completely filling out the map is quite satisfying. On an unrelated topic, did you know that people with ADHD often exhibit similar habits to those with OCD? Just gonna leave that fact right there. Anyways, Yu tells Qingmei to go back to the village while he checks on the other traps, and of course, she refuses. This task leads into the night where she does get captured by some bandits who have actually been trying to attack the village for some time now, but due to Yu's traps, they haven't been able to get to it. Yu goes back to the village to get a party geared up, but no one wants to join him because of course not. This is a JRPG and we're only like half an hour in. We're not getting our second party member that quickly. Yu infiltrates the bandit camp alone, and we're now in a stealth section. You can't attack the bandits to fight them off even if you wanted to. So, I explore the camp, avoiding detection, only to find a girl named Zichao. She's laying on the ground asking for food. Same girl, same. Once Yu gives her some food and explains the situation, she joins us and we get our second party member. Turns out this girl is from the Shang Kingdom, who seems to be on the opposition of Yosheng Village. Yu doesn't say anything to avoid any additional conflicts and just accepts the help. Together we set fire to the camp, fight off some bandits, and save Qingmei and this other girl who looks exactly like the same girl in the opening cinematic from a few centuries ago. We part ways with Zichao, take the mysterious girl back to the village, where of course we're scolded for going off on our own. But Qingmei has had enough with the chief, and she explains that the bandits were held back by Yu's traps. So he's actually been protecting the village this whole time. The next day, Qingmei says that they should have a ritual for the ancestors as a celebration that they survived the ordeal. They set off to gather ingredients when Yu finds the mysterious girl out and about. She's been completely silent since they rescued her, so he finds it odd and decides to protect her from some monsters in the area. She finds the piglet that was caught by one of Yu's traps at the beginning of the game. The piglet runs off and the two run after it, or, well, the girl runs after it and Yu runs after her. They find themselves in this place with a giant tree where Yu tells the girl to go back to the village and he'll handle it. Yu then finds the piglet near what looks to be a dead pig that might be its parent. Suddenly, a spirit shows up and messes with the piglet. The two of them run into an urn and the piglet turns into a spirit pig. This is definitely a mascot character. I mean, 7 had the king, Mist Beyond the Mountains had Nicole, the succubus, I guess. So this little guy is definitely the mascot for the Gate of Firmament. The mysterious girl reappears and tries to take the urn, and the piglet bites you when he tries to protect her. He says to let the piglet keep the urn, and she agrees, so they tie it to its back, and I gotta say, this is the best Pokemon design I've seen in a while. The two of them then make their way back to Qingmei, where someone sets off one of Yu's traps again. Turns out it's this guy named Jaihu, who happens to have been attacked by the same bandits as them. They decide to take him back to the village and care for him, and after healing, Jaihu takes his leave from the village, and so does the mysterious girl. Afterward, another trap triggers somewhere in the village this time. Yu runs to check it out, and it turns out to be the spirit piglet Pokemon thing, who just runs off again. Yu follows, and it turns out the piglet just wants to play, but he smells fire in the distance. He runs back to his village, and it's being attacked by the same bandit tribe that they escaped from. Turns out that Jaihu is their leader. He was able to get a look at Yu's trap placements while he was in the village and led the bandits there. Yu tries to fight against them, but is taken out pretty quickly. Just as Yu's fate is about to be sealed, Jaihu is hit with a magical attack. Turns out it's the mysterious girl who finally says her first words of the game.
So.
Seems like she's a woman of few words even when she does speak. Turns out her name is Muyue. Now, even though the bandits have been dealt with, there is still the problem of the village. Everyone is blaming Yu for what happened. However, the chief decides to send him on a mission that will have him leave the village but doesn't exile him. He must escort Muyue back to her home. He accepts this mission and the two head out. This is about where I decided to stop for the purpose of this first impressions, but damn, a whole lot happened in the span of like a few hours. I feel like I haven't even started to uncover the main plot yet. Maybe this is one of those give it like 30 hours and you'll love it kind of games. I do plan to keep playing for the story, but how is the gameplay? Well, I'm glad you asked because it's just a turn-based JRPG. There's not a whole lot different here. It does do the thing where each face button is a different action. X and circle by default are your attacks, while square and triangle can be set to use items. If you hold R1, you have access to different special attacks that use mana. You can unlock these by spending skill points, which you earn each time you level up. Turns happen in real time, but each character and enemy has a cooldown. You do have access to different attacks after hitting X the first time. It's kind of similar to Dynasty Warriors, where square is a normal attack and triangle is your combo ender. X and circle kind of work that way too. There isn't a whole lot to say about it beyond that from what I could find. I also skipped a lot of battles since there were no random encounters. The monsters are just roaming about, so you can run past them if you want. I found most battles, even boss battles, didn't really provide me with enough of a challenge, and I'm kind of scared to find out what's gonna happen if I grind. While the story may be very interesting and the combat what you'd expect from a turn-based game like this, there are a handful of other things to complain about. Obviously, the visuals feel pretty dated for 2015. I mean, this was the year that The Witcher 3 came out. I know that game likely had a larger budget and studio, but just putting it into perspective, this is also the year we got Pirate Warriors 3. Hell, the original release date in China was the same month as Yakuza 0. But I don't need fancy graphics to have a good time. I do, however, need these models to be a bit more well animated between emotions and gestures so I don't get pulled out of the experience. I mean, characters don't even look each other in the eyes, and at times, not even in the general direction of each other when they're having conversations. Like, just have the character models face each other instead of having them look away. But the worst thing about this game is kind of a mix between two complaints. The first is that this is only dubbed in Chinese. I mean, East Asia Soft isn't a AAA publisher that's rolling in the kind of money that lets them pay for a story-heavy game like this to be fully dubbed in English, but the lack of an English dub is hurt so much more by the fact that the text has spelling and grammatical mistakes. The past Xuan Yuan and Sword and Fairy games I've covered had the odd issue, but nothing that really hurt the experience. I could find many examples of poorly written or translated lines in this game. Now, I could keep playing through it because I'm actually interested to see what happens, but I could see this being enough to push others to drop it. I don't know, this part of the game feels so much lower in quality when compared to the others that I'm just at a loss for words. I know, the irony isn't lost on me. This is coming from the guy who hasn't stopped talking this entire time. In the end, Xuan Yuan Sword, the Gate of Firmament, is a tough one for me to solidify my opinion on. Gameplay-wise, It's a turn-based JRPG style game. It's hard to make a game with these types of mechanics and do it poorly. I mean, the Gate of Firmament does do enough to differentiate itself where I'd recommend it to fans looking for a new turn-based game to try out, but if you came from my previous videos on Xuan Yuan and Sword and Fairy, you'll likely be taken aback by some of the shortcomings with this game. Visuals, while janky, aren't the end of the world. I mean, I grew up on PS1 graphics and animations. You think I'm gonna say that this is the worst in the world? It does feel more like a game that would have been made in like the late 90s and early 2000s than it does a game that came out 10 years ago. I just wish that the animations were smoother and the pre-rendered cutscenes were in a higher resolution. Honestly, that's all that would need to be done to save the visuals. I mean, Final Fantasy X came out 14 years before this game and had smoother animations. Then there's the spelling and grammatical mistakes. This pulled me out so many times and is probably the biggest reason I may not recommend it to some. I even started looking away from time to time while story was happening, and when I focused back on the game, I didn't feel I had missed enough to have to stay focused anytime there was a conversation happening. At the end of the day, if you're wondering whether you should give Xuan Yuan Sword: The Gate of Firmament a try, I would only say if you have played the other Xuan Yuan games and you're interested in experiencing another entry. Mist Beyond the Mountains, in my opinion, is a better game overall, and 7 was just so incredible I'd go as far as to say that it's my favorite Chinese developed game so far. Probably shouldn't say that too loud, I'll end up on MiHoYo's naughty list. I wouldn't say to completely avoid the Gate of Firmament though. Through its shortcomings, there is a decent time here, but maybe play one of the other games I've mentioned first to see if this world is one you'd like to dive into. Here's hoping we do see a patch that corrects a lot of the mistakes in the text sometime in the future. I'm also hoping that this isn't the last Softstar game we get to see on PS5. Mist Beyond the Mountains would be really cool, and I'd love to see East Asia Soft put out a PS5 version of Xuan Yuan Sword 7, but until that day comes, maybe I'll go back to playing it on PS4. I mean, I still gotta get the Platinum Trophy after getting all the achievements on Xbox, right? No, you have a problem! Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for watching my first impressions of Xuan Yuan Sword: The Gate of Firmament. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe for more. Have you played a Xuan Yuan or Sword and Fairy game before? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to help support this channel and what I do here, you can join the guild, just like these awesome people that you're seeing on screen right now. You can join them at the end of every single video for just $1 a month over on Patreon or YouTube memberships, or you can donate in a one-time fashion and join the volunteer unit over on Coffee or through super chats during live streams. A special shout out to my guild generals Biggie Beg Beg and Loose Chojin for supporting this channel at the top tier. There are other rewards and other tiers as well, so check out the links that you see on screen, and I will see you all down in the comments.